Hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that Bestbell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Bestbell, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
And welcome to week number 3. I'm Bradley Stalder. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. Tonight, we're going to jump into some weekly waiver wire must-adds. I've got at least 10 for you. And if you stick around, maybe I'll give you a bonus one as well. I'm really excited to get into the waiver wire. I know that it's been heart-wrenching, though, because we know who the backup is and who the number one priority add for week number 3 is, and that is Jerome Ford. We'll get into Jerome Ford and all of that, but I just want to say that it was heart-wrenching to see Nick Chubb go down. He's the face of the franchise for the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns, they probably could have won the game with Chubb in there. The Steelers are one of the worst run defenses right now. And I mean, we saw what Jerome Ford was able to do when Nick Chubb was out, but Chubb was already at 6.1 yards per attempt. And that was only with a long run of 20 on the season so far. So he was consistently churning out the yardage, just like we knew he would be. Prime Nick Chubb, and now he's out for at least the rest of the season. It's a really devastating injury for Chubb because this was the same knee that he had reconstructed back in 2015 when he was running back at Georgia. He got the knee reconstructed. We anticipate that there's going to be more development about Nick Chubb's knee injury coming forward, but how we approach this situation is going to be very key. And I think regardless of what free agent running back might be entertained or visiting in Cleveland right now, whether it is Kareem Hunt or maybe some other free agent that might be coming by, or maybe it's Cam Akers who's traded for it. Regardless, I think it is going to be Jerome Ford. So let's start with Jerome Ford as the number one priority add for week 3. We've already seen Jerome Ford handle 15 carries each of the last 2 games, once against Cincinnati and the other now against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jerome Ford, very interestingly enough, a better yards after contact per attempt than Nick Chubb through the first 2 weeks. And in fact, among running backs with at least 8 carries, Jerome Ford is 6th among all running backs in yards after contact per attempt through the first 2 weeks. And he is also 10th overall in rushing yards with 142 on the season. That's tied with Tony Pollard. It's ahead of David Montgomery, ahead of Austin Eckler, of course, who missed a game. But Eckler, 117 rushing yards in his first game. It's ahead of Kenneth Walker. It's ahead of a few other running backs, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, even through the first 2 weeks. And so Jerome Ford, I project, is going to handle the majority of the load moving forward. It's clear that Pierre Strong is operating as the backup. It depends on who's going to come back to Cleveland, whether it's Kareem Hunt or whether Cam Akers is brought in, but I'm still projecting Jerome Ford to be the back the remainder of the season, which is why you should be bidding 75 to 100% of your fab on Jerome Ford. Once again, this is a run-heavy team in Cleveland with an offense that struggles to do anything else. Like Deshaun Watson does not look like himself from the couple seasons ago where he led the NFL in passing yards. Instead, it's been Nick Chubb, but we saw a 69-yard run against the Pittsburgh Steelers by Jerome Ford. Now, do I think Jerome Ford is going to maintain that level of efficiency? I don't think that level of efficiency, but Cleveland has a strong offensive line, yes, hampered by the loss of Jack Conklin in week 1, but I think Jerome Ford is going to be the volume play moving forward. He's going to be a solid running back week to week, and we saw him involved in the passing game as well. Jerome Ford, over the last 2 games, has been involved in the passing game. So 3 receptions, 25 yards, 4 targets through the first 2 games. And I don't anticipate Pierre Strong vulturing Jerome Ford like he did in this week 2 game, but that's why we need to be in on Jerome Ford, right? A 5th round pick out of Cincinnati by the Cleveland Browns a couple years ago. And we need to be, he's been waiting in the wings. We've been waiting in the wings, and now for the rest of the season, it's going to be Jerome Ford. He's available in nearly more than 85% of leagues. In some deeper leagues, he may have been picked up already as a handcuff consideration, but Jerome Ford is a player that we need to be making a priority add in your waiver wire. So go and get him, spend the fab. This is the time to do it. You don't want to be waiting for the bag. I mean, we saw the if you have any fab left over from the Puka Nacua scenario from last week, where I said the Puka Nacua was a must add, even though I wasn't sure if he was a must start. Yeah, he was a must start. I mean, Puka Nacua has been absolutely crushing. And y'all can go through my tweets. And find where I tweeted about Puka Nacua back in March, Puka Nacua back in May and June and July and August and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to victory lap again for Puka Nacua. Y'all need to be picking up Jerome Ford. He was a player I should have drafted a little bit more. I have 3% of Jerome Ford in my underdog leagues and a little bit more in the DraftKings, but Jerome Ford in the redraft should mostly be available for you, and you should be using your first waiver priority on Jerome Ford. You should be putting 75 to 100% of your fab. I mean, unless you are all set at running back, I guess, but this is the opportunity to at least put, like, let's say you're not interested in Ford. You don't want your league mates to get away with a cheap Jerome Ford, though. So at least put a bare minimum waiver bid of what you would like to put on. And this is just a way to keep the rest of your league honest if you're going by fab bidding. So you may not even be interested in Jerome Ford. Fine. You be you. You can play how you want to play. But you also should consider that you don't want your league mates getting a really cheap running back too, who could have some nice matchups moving forward and is definitely going to be the starter sans some surprise, because while the Browns have reportedly reached out about Cam Akers and have had Kareem Hunt come in and visit, it's clear through the first 2 games that the Cleveland Browns coaching staff, they, number one, love Jerome Ford. I had been saying that all off season. And number 2 is they let him handle 15 touches, 15 plus touches in each of the first 2 games. So it's clear that the coaching staff wants to use Jerome Ford. We're not certain about the Browns using any other back, but what we do know is Jerome Ford is the answer. So go and get Jerome Ford. Use your fab. Keep your league mates honest. Even if you're not interested, you should be putting in a bid for Jerome Ford. All right. You should also be targeting Roschon Johnson. I feel like I've been talking about Roschon Johnson for a few weeks now, but it's a clear indicator that Johnson is the number 2 back for the Chicago Bears. Yes, the Bears have struggled a little bit, but on the season, Roschon Johnson, 74 PFF rush grade is respectable. Only 9 attempts, but I mean, we're talking about Roschon Johnson. He had 29-yard rush, 2.11 yards after contact per attempt. Not terrible. He had a rushing touchdown so far this season, and he has 9 targets through 2 games, 8 receptions, an 85 pass block grade. I think it's going to be a bit before Roschon Johnson takes over this backfield because Khalil Herbert is playing well. Okay. I know Khalil Herbert's yards per carry aren't great, but he's out rush graded Roschon Johnson. He's out pass blocked, or at least been close enough in the pass blocking. His yards after contact per attempt has been great, and missed tackles forced has been great. So, and especially in week 2 against Tampa Bay, 7 for 35 on the ground is not going to be the volume that we want for Khalil Herbert. But I think that the Bears are going to have to relook at their offense and say, what has been working? Well, Khalil Herbert has been an effective player for us. And in week 2, 4.14 yards after contact per attempt, 5 missed tackles on 7 attempts. That's an awesome ratio. And we knew Khalil Herbert was an efficiency running back with some interesting metrics, some interesting burst and agility scores in his profile. But Roschon Johnson is a player that if the Chicago Bears are involving running backs in the passing game, it's clearly not Khalil Herbert as much as Roschon Johnson, 9 targets versus 6 targets so far this season. So I think it's going to be a little bit, but this is the patience play. You want Roschon Johnson on your team before anyone else gets him on their team. Roschon has already bumped Donta Foreman to being inactive, and it didn't lead to Khalil Herbert having a ton more carries. So Roschon, I think, is the pickup here. Khalil Herbert is probably rostered in most of your leagues, but this is why we want Roschon. And if Khalil Herbert goes down, it's clear that Roschon is capable of handling a workload, both of what we've seen here so far in the passing game and in the rushing game, but also what we saw at Texas playing behind and alongside Bijan Robinson. So Roschon Johnson is a player that, he's probably rostered in a third of your leagues, but once again, a player that we shouldn't be ignoring, even after maybe a disappointing week 2 where we thought, oh, if Donta Foreman is going to be the guy, or if he's going to be out, then Roschon's the guy. Still, 32 rushing yards on 4 attempts. You can't ignore that type of efficiency. A 29-yard run looks really, really nice against Tampa. So continue to attack the waiver wire for Roschon Johnson. All right, another player that we need to be attacking, and this is a wide receiver surprise, Rashid Shaheed. Yes, we want to be getting Rashid Shaheed on our lineups because when we look at the wide receivers for the New Orleans Saints, we've been seeing some nice volume coming from those wide receivers. Through week 1, it's been obviously Chris Olave with the targets, 21 targets through 2 games, and then Michael Thomas at 17. But then third is Rashid Shaheed. And Shaheed, he's playing about 2/3 of what Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are, but he's playing out wide 63% of the time. Michael Thomas is playing 72%, so it's mostly Thomas and Shaheed playing outside, and the yards per reception is just massive for Rashid Shaheed. Nearly 17 yards per reception, 152 yards through the first 2 games. So we're talking about a boom bust type of player, but already 152 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 receptions, 10 targets. So we're talking 5 targets per game, 4 to 5 receptions per game, and possibility of a touchdown with the depth of target. He's got the speed. This is a boom type of player. And so I like, especially once we start getting into bye weeks, Rashid Shaheed getting into your flex consideration, and you don't want to be, fighting for him when the bye weeks come up. So this is the time to pick up a Rashid Shaheed, where he's shown some real nice efficiency. A 77 PFF receiving grade is very respectable. And if anything happens to Michael Thomas, because Thomas has been, injured in the past, Thomas is not playing as much in the slot. Given that Jawan Johnson is operating a lot in the slot and Olave is also at a 43% clip in the slot. So Michael Thomas is playing a lot more on the outside. And if he's getting tangled up on these higher ADOT plays, or if he's getting played tough by defensive backs, that's recipe for getting your feet tangled up and getting some big hits. So Rashid Shaheed, if Michael Thomas goes down, I think would be a significant beneficiary. So Rashid Shaheed is a player that, rostered in less than 40% of leagues. You should be going and getting some Rashid Shaheed. I'm back. Miss you. We love it. Do you remember me? Yes. It's been a minute, but happy that you're back. Sup Serendipity Trick Shots. Appreciate you jumping in. We're going to keep talking through some waiver wire ads. We've hit on Jerome Ford already, Roshan Johnson, and Rashid Shaheed. Jaden Reed. Let's get some Jaden Reed in the building, okay? Because Jaden Reed among wide receivers, let me do some filtering here. Yeah, Jaden Reed is 21st among wide receivers in PFF receiving grade, 76.7. He's playing very well. The problem is the snaps. Jaden Reed has only played 38 pass snaps, which is like halftime player, not even halftime player. But when he is out there, Jaden Reed, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns on 6 receptions. He's been an efficiency guy, played very well, second round pick. And so we want to be picking up more Jaden Reed because his role is only going to increase. It's only going to improve. And we've seen some good games from Jaden Reed already. If you look at what Jaden Reed has done, he's already improved his receiving grade over the last couple games, right? He's playing a lot in the slot. And as Jordan Love gets more comfortable, right? This is what the coaching staff, the Green Bay Packers, have said. They've said they're going to lean on the defense to start the season, and then they're going to give Jordan Love more of the reins as the season goes on. And especially with Christian Watson, still dealing with the hamstring injury that's cost him the first couple games, Jaden Reed continues to be a strong start as we're moving forward. And an important stash. The reason why he's only 12% rostered is because we haven't had the confidence to be able to play him except in really deep leagues. So for him to go 4 for 37 and 2 touchdowns, that looks really nice. And we want to continue to buy into these early day 2 draft capital wide receivers who have flashed upside and are improving their participation. So we like that he got more targets and more receptions in this game. He had 2 touchdowns against the Falcons. And as the Green Bay Packers are trying to manufacture offense with Aaron Jones out, for instance, and A.J. Dillon really getting stifled, Jaden Reed was an option for them. And so I think that that's going to be a role that we're going to want to see Jaden Reed continue to improve on as the season goes on. But he's given us reasons to believe. And so stash Jaden Reed as we're going forward. Okay. We got some questions in the chat about some players to pick up. We'll definitely talk about that. Is Matt Breida a good guy to get if Ford is gone? Not really. I'm not a big fan of Matt Breida. Matt Breida is not a player that I'm targeting because I think that Matt Breida is not very good. I mean, Matt Breida's claim to fame is that he is a pass catching running back, right? He's able to catch balls out of the backfield. He can fit into like that Saquon pass catching role. Not very good. In fact, Matt Breida had a 26.1 PFF receiving grade so far through 2 weeks, which is very bad. And then looking at Breida's rush grade, 65 is not great. 3 for 14 on the ground, including a fumble already for Breida. Not a player that I want to be targeting. Only one other running back has carried the ball for the New York Giants, and that's been Gary Brightwell. He had 1 carry for 5 yards. So this might be a situation where the Giants try out their rookie running back, Eric Gray, who profiles as a between the tackles, pass catching back out of Oklahoma. Gray, I believe 5th or 6th round pick, was not a player that got high marks out of the NFL draft, but he might be a player that we could be looking at and saying, hey, maybe the Giants want to see what they have in him. It's clear that Matt Breida, who's, now nearly 29 years old, is not a not a factor, right? Last year for the Giants, 61 attempts, 250 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, a decent rush grade, but we know what Matt Breida is. His ceiling is probably 12 fantasy points. Like, do you want to take your shot on a Matt Breida, or do you want to take your shot on, like, Kendre Miller might be available, or a Devon A-Chain? We know Matt Breida isn't good, and we know he's not going to be able to, like, carry the load for more than about 10 or 12 carries. So that's not a player that I'm going out of my way to target. If you're in a really deep league and you do need someone with a pulse, Matt Breida, fine. Like, but I'm not going out of my way and spending a significant amount of fab to get Matt Breida at all. And I'm willing to eat an L on that if that's the case. If I lose about Matt Breida, so be it. But I think that there are much better bets for swings of upside and having a 3-down roll than Matt Breida that might still be on your waiver wire. Emily Collier, would you trade Garrett Wilson for DeAndre Hopkins? This is a tough one because we like Hopkins and his target share, but also Garrett Wilson is the new shiny toy who has shown that he can be a producer even with bad quarterback play. My concern is that Hopkins could very much fall off a cliff and just deal with the injury bug. So Garrett Wilson, I think, is the lean right now, but I wouldn't go out of my way to go acquire DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I would just hold on to Garrett Wilson. It's mostly a zero-sum gain at this point because both passing offenses are suspect. Like, Ryan Tannehill can have his spike weeks, but it's going to be because of DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks. And same thing with Zach Wilson. Like, it's going to be because Garrett Wilson is a baller that Zach Wilson is a thing. So would I trade him? I wouldn't go out of my way to do that. No. Zach Moss. Yeah, Zach Moss is going to be a target for us, I believe, looking at the Indianapolis Colts and how they deployed Zach Moss last week, right? 18 carries, 88 yards, nearly 5 yards a carry. He had the touchdown against Houston. Houston's an easy defense, though. And Indy instead is, Indy is facing Baltimore this week, which is going to be a much more difficult matchup. So I would not start Zach Moss with confidence, but it's clear that the Colts want to give him volume. So it may be a volume play. So if you're desperate for running back 2, I think Zach Moss significantly over Matt Breida, like tiers ahead of Matt Breida. Do you trust Kadarius Toney? Trust is a strong word, Serendipity Trick Shots. Trust is a very strong word, and I don't think we can say trust for Kadarius Toney because, I mean, look at what he did in week 1 and then compare to what he did in week number 2. Kadarius Toney in week 1, 1 reception for a yard. In week 2, 5 for 35. Much better receiving grade for Kadarius Toney in week number 2. He played a lot more in the slot, so a lot closer. He played 4 more pass snaps. So it's clear that Kadarius Toney is getting more integrated. He certainly has amazing upside, and that's why he was being drafted in like the 6th or 7th round in some fantasy drafts this summer. But once he got injured, he dropped to the 10th, 11th, 12th round, etc. of some fantasy drafts. And so, no, I don't think trust is a strong word. And we're going to need to see him play more than 50% of snaps. Like, we want to see him get into the 30-plus snap range. He's playing fewer snaps than Jaden Reed right now. And while his upside is massive because of his joystick body ability and his elite athleticism, his body could just snap in half like that and we're done. Or, I don't know, he could get dramatic, whatever. So trust is a strong word, but the upside exists. Like, make no mistake about it. Kadarius Toney has some of the highest ceiling potential of any wide receiver in the NFL. However, we've also seen that the floor is like depths of the ocean low. So if there's a player with a wider range of outcomes, it's Kadarius Toney because of his ceiling and floor combination. All right, we've got some more questions in the chat. I'm going to answer a couple more, and then we'll get into more of the waiver portion of the segment. Keep putting the questions in, though. It's really great. I appreciate all of you. If you're new and you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the red subscribe button. Appreciate all you doing that. Mark Folkman, a regular on the pod. Appreciate you, Mark. Have a good problem. Decent crew of wide receivers, but not sure who to start outside of Amon-Ra, right? We have Puka Nacua, Mike Williams, Zay Flowers, Chris Godwin, or Christian Kirk. 3 wide receiver slots, half PPR, flexes, running back, Kyron, maybe. So, yeah, I think you're starting Amon-Ra for sure. Puka Nacua, you're also starting given what he's doing. You cannot not start Puka now. He's led all wide receivers in targets through the first 2 weeks. You got to start Puka Nacua. This is a player that I've been touting since March. Okay, you can go back to my tweets. March 22nd of 2023 is when I first started tweeting about Puka Nacua. And then again in May, when I said that I wouldn't be surprised if by the time May of 2024 rolls around, he is has overtaken Van Jefferson as the wide receiver 2 at that time. And so Puka Nacua already ahead of my projection. Mike Williams and Zay Flowers, Chris Godwin. Zay Flowers, I think, is your other start here because the Baltimore Ravens face off against the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receiver tight end combos combined over the first 2 weeks. And we want... this is a bounce back game. This is a get right game for the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. So we want Zay Flowers. This is a player who's averaged over a 24% target share through the first 2 games. Wide receivers are going to crush, and Zay Flowers gets those touches manufactured for him. Give me Flowers, Puka, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like Godwin. I like Mike Williams. I don't mind those players at all. But I think we're going to give the lean to Flowers, Puka, and Amon-Ra. Same thing with Christian Kirk. Kirk had a bounce back week, but we're not going to get too crazy here. All right, last question, and then we'll get into the waiver portion. Actually, this ties in perfectly to the next waiver portion. Josh Reynolds or Tank Dell. And this allows us to talk about Tank Dell, who is available in 95.6% of leagues. Tank Dell is the truth. Okay, I've drafted a little bit of Tank Dell. If we look at what Tank Dell was able to do, 71 PFF grade. He's playing nearly all the snaps. It's Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Robert Woods who are playing all of the wide receiver snaps. It's beautiful. And Tank Dell, 14 targets, 10 receptions, and a touchdown, 106 yards through the first 2 games. I mean, you'll take 5 for 50 and maybe half a touchdown on average from what we expected to be a bad offense, right? And this is also a team that ate up against the Indianapolis Colts. So Tank Dell is a player that we want to be buying into. Again, a day 2 pick who has shown signs of life, just like Jaden Reed. As I mentioned before, Jaden Reed, Tank Dell, these are players that we want to be buying into. Given their role and their efficiency already that we've been seeing on their respective teams. But Tank Dell, interestingly enough, is playing 71% of his snaps out wide, and he is 5'8", 165. He's winning on the outside, 71 PFF grade, despite being 5'8", 165, running a 4.49. He's not fast, he's not big, and he's still winning. That is an indication, right? That's also why, like, you need to believe in if a player has succeeded like this, who does not have the measurables, who does not have the speed, who does not have the size, and he's still winning, those are the types of players that you want to bet on because they are finding other ways to win. Okay, they're winning their routes. They're reading the defenses better. They're getting open for their quarterback. They're gaining the trust of their quarterback, and they're earning targets, right? Talented players, especially wide receivers, earn targets, and you can't ignore that Tank Dell is coming off a 10-target game, 7 receptions, and a touchdown. He played 47 pass snaps, right? And played 68% out wide. So this is a player that we need to be rostering as he continues to improve and get better. And as this Houston team gets better, remember, this is a game that CJ Stroud came in with a shoulder injury. He was questionable for this game, and still Tank Dell winning on the outside. This is impressive. We need to be impressed by what Tank Dell. So especially in your 12, 16 team leagues, Tank Dell is maybe a flex consideration week to week in your leagues. Okay, cool. We will keep going here with questions in the chat. Appreciate y'all. Continue to crush the chat. Let's see here. The Joker, who to drop for Jerome Ford? Khalil Herbert, Tyler Algier, Alexander Madison, or none? You can drop Chig maybe. Okay. Yeah. So I think I would take Jerome Ford over Khalil Herbert, over Tyler Algier, over Alexander Madison. I take him over all of them, but if I'm dropping one, it's probably Khalil Herbert. I'm not sure that he's going to get the volume that we want. So give me Khalil Herbert as your drop in replacement of Jerome Ford, Joker. Should I drop Treylon Burks for Jaden Reed? I don't think so. I don't think Jaden Reed is playing enough quite yet. I mean, we can look at what Jaden Reed, who pulled out the touchdowns. You got to give him credit. He executed very well. But Treylon Burks, 5 catches for 94 yards and no scores, but 7 targets through the first 2 games. Remember, Burks was coming off of that injury, the knee injury, and I think he will continue to get better. Playing 59 pass snaps, that's in line with what DeAndre Hopkins and Nick Westbrook-Akine is doing. If you're in like a 16-team league and you need a flex play, like a desperation flex play, Nick Westbrook-Akine is a player that you need to be considering. 7 catches, 83 yards, had a touchdown. He's a full-time player, 62 pass snaps, 55 receiving snaps, running around on 89% of his routes are on the snaps. So, and playing mostly out of the slot, like nearly 50% out of the slot. So Nick Westbrook-Akine, if you're desperate, he's played all right. And so I think that if you're in like a 16-team league and need a flex spot, Nick Westbrook-Akine is a player that has earned double-digit targets. He's second on the team in targets, only behind DeAndre Hopkins, who has 17. So consider Nick Westbrook-Akine as a really deep stash. Treylon Burks, though, I think better days are ahead. So I would not drop Treylon Burks for Jaden Reed quite yet. Okay. The Joker is, we'll see if we can get Kirk Cousins with one of those players in the second waiver. Yeah, I would prioritize Jerome Ford over Kirk Cousins. I have Bourne and Shaheed. Should I drop any of them for Tank Dell? Okay. Brandon Cooks, Elijah Moore, Reynolds, Atwell. Yeah, I mean, I need to refresh on Kendrick Bourne. Remember, Bourne, 4 receptions, 9 targets. The problem is with Bourne is that he's running like 70% of his snaps out wide, and Mac Jones is one of the worst passers right now in terms of passes thrown 20 yards down the field to be able to catch. And that's kind of what Kendrick Bourne has been doing. So that's going to be a problem. It's also a problem that Kendrick Bourne took a massive step backward in terms of pass snaps with Devontae Parker back. He played half of the previous week with Devontae Parker back in the lineup, and Parker had like 8 targets. 7 or 8 targets. So even though Kendrick Bourne had 9 targets in this Miami game, he was not a starter and not a player that I'm going to be confident moving forward. So I would drop Kendrick Bourne and let someone else have to deal with whether or not to start Kendrick Bourne. I'd rather have Tank Dell. Or maybe if you're injured list is empty, you can put in Brandon Cooks there. I like Brandon Cooks as a stash on your IR, so consider that. Okay, cool. Should we start Waller versus San Francisco or Henry versus the Jets? Yeah, I think you're still starting Hunter Henry, even though, I mean, both are tough matchups. Waller is leading all tight ends in receiving yards, but Hunter Henry is second. Okay, so this is both are tough matchups, but I think, I think we still give the lean to Waller. I don't think we can get that spicy quite yet, but Waller's the better athlete. Waller is running a lot of those wide routes, not just in the slot. Hunter Henry is third in tight end slot snap percentage, only behind Mark Andrews and Mike Gesicki. So Henry has an improved role this year, but I don't think we go too hog wild. And I think we're still going to go Waller over Henry in this matchup. San Francisco is a little bit more vulnerable than the Jets are. So let's go with Waller. Who to pick up? Ertz, Laporta, Schultz, Ferguson, or Freiermuth? Oh, man. I know Freiermuth had a bad game, but I'm still a believer in Pat Freiermuth as the talent. Laporta, though, I think is going to be your consistent 5 catches for 50 yards and with the touchdown possibility. So when it comes to consistency, I think we're going to go with Laporta. Ertz has the blemish of being on the Cardinals, right? Even if he gets 8 targets, it could be for 30 yards. And Schultz has not been great for us. Ferguson, his first game had a lot of expected fantasy points. In the second game, he just had the touchdown. So we don't know what to believe about Jake Ferguson because he's supposed to have that role, but we're not trusting it. So I think I would go with Laporta is probably the lean I would go out of all of these. I do like Freiermuth though as well. If you have space, you could pull off both. I think Freiermuth is interesting. I was surprised, in fact, that Freiermuth only got targeted once or twice in the Cleveland game, only had 1 reception for like 4 yards. Didn't do very much against Cleveland. I think better days are ahead for Pat Freiermuth, especially given that Deontay Johnson is now on the IR. So Pat Freiermuth, is a longer-term target, but Laporta, I think, is your start week to week. Should I trade Jahmyr Gibbs for Josh Jacobs? This is a tough one. This is a tough one because Josh Jacobs has not done great, but Jahmyr Gibbs is also a player that has played lower than the expectations, even though his targets and target share has been there. 26% target share is nothing to scoff at for Jahmyr Gibbs. So with Devontae Adams, though, dealing with the concussion issue, Jacoby Myers, I think that's short term. Long term, I think you're just keeping Jahmyr Gibbs around. David Montgomery is expected to miss a couple weeks. He's day-to-day officially by the coaching staff, and we know that running backs lie. Let's just take a second, take a step back, and just recognize that running backs lie, right? Saquon Barkley is like threatening to hold out. The next day, boom, signs an extension. Miles Sanders says, don't draft me for fantasy. Has a 10 touchdown season and a career year. David Montgomery says, I'm going to be out for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then his coaches come out and say, actually, you're more day to day. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be just fine, regardless of what happens to David Montgomery. His target share is going to be there. And I think they're going to rush him just a little bit more. I do believe that the Detroit Lions coaching staff is going to play it conservative. We have seen in the past the Lions play their players that they care about conservatively. They were, for instance, the Lions last year were very conservative in how they brought along Jamison Williams from his ACL tear. right? We need to notice these patterns of how the Lions have been treating their players. Like, the Lions believe in Jameson Williams. They believe that he can progress as a player, and that's why they were just easing him in at the end of last year. And so I think that and last year the Lions had a game plan for DeAndre Swift after his injuries. The Lions are very disciplined about the game plans they have for their players. And so I think for Jahmyr Gibbs, if Dan Campbell says, yeah, we're going to start giving him just a little bit more, it's not going to be an avalanche. I doubt it will be an avalanche for Jahmyr Gibbs. It's going to be more of a slow burn, but that's okay. I think just stashing Jahmyr Gibbs for his massive upside is the play here. And I don't think we should be tantalized by what could be a very bad Raiders team, especially if Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers are out. The Raiders are going to be leaning on Hunter Renfrow and Trey Tucker, right? That's not going to be the formula for success with Jimmy Garoppolo. Even if Josh Jacobs gets 30 touches in a game, then teams are just going to be all over Jacobs. It's not going to be worth it. So I think you hold on to Jahmyr Gibbs here. Gooner Boy, running backs are David Montgomery, Zach Moss, Roschon, and Warren. Do I burn all my fab on Jerome Ford? Do I add Kendry Miller, Tank Bigsby over Elijah Moore with my running back room? Yeah, so this is a good question. David Montgomery is going to be out for a few weeks. We anticipate maybe, possibly. This is a situation we're monitoring, which is why we're going to add Jerome Ford here. We are going to burn some fab. We are going to go in on Jerome Ford. Like, anyone who's telling you different, like, let's just think about this for a second. Anyone who's telling you to not burn fab on Jerome Ford, did they watch the games? Have they seen what Cleveland's done in the last couple of games? Have they seen what Cleveland's done as an organization and not bring back Kareem Hunt, not gone out and addressed free agency with like Leonard Fournette? They weren't active with Dalvin Cook. I mean, they've reached out finally to see what kind of value they can get on Cam Akers, but there's not been a sign or vote of confidence outside of Jerome Ford. So let's go in on Jerome Ford. Let's put the confidence in Jerome Ford like the Cleveland Browns have put confidence in Jerome Ford. So, and if I'm adding any of those running backs, I think it's Tank Bigsby, even though he goose-egged in week 2, because if it's either Tank Bigsby or Kendry Miller, give me Bigsby, because Miller might still be dealing with the knee injury. We're not sure. We'll see. Bro, Cam Toe. Started Josh Kelly. Well, good thing I also started Kyron Williams. Didn't listen to you entirely. Yeah, so Kyron Williams, that was a surprise start. But Joshua Kelly was a player that I thought would be, mid running back 2 with the volume that he would get. But, he had shown in the past that we should have concerns about volume. And so as I mentioned in a bunch of my videos, he was a volume-based running back 2. And even for the LA Chargers, looking at who else handled rushing volume, right? Joshua Kelly in week number 2 handled 13 carries. Only 4 carries went to Elijah Dotson, and 1 carry went to Isaiah Spiller. So this was the volume play, but he didn't get the efficiency, and he didn't get goal line work to convert. So it just, the floor fell out, but we got the volume that we wanted relative to the other running backs. Like, out of the 18 running back carries, Joshua Kelly handled 13 of them and 15 snaps out of the 21. So he handled the majority. He got the volume that we wanted. He just did not do much with it. So it's unfortunate, but Kyron Williams was a player that for the last year I'd been pounding the table for. So at least, I've hit 1 out of 2, batting 500. I'll take that. Thanks, Camto. Can't win them all, but we do want to be following this process of, if they're running back 2s with volume, they always have a chance to fall in the end zone. And if Joshua Kelly does fall in the end zone, we're talking about a 10, 15 point game here. But as I mentioned, it was going to be a bigger game for the wide receivers Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, etc. And that was the case in particular for the wide receivers. Okay. 12-team PPR. I have Saquon, Jacobs, Sanders, Pirine, Roshan. Should I drop Pirine for Kyron or Ford? Yes. Yes, that's an easy drop. That is an easy drop. I appreciate you asking me that because we do want to, mix in some of these easy questions here and there. So there we go. I'm here for, you need to be dropping Pirine for Kyron or for Ford. This is the way. This is the way. Okay. There we go. You better be right. What to think about Jerry Jeudy? Yeah, so Jerry Jeudy was a player that I was hesitant to rank highly in week number 2 because he was coming off the injury. And I mean, we hadn't seen what he wanted to do in week 1. So this wasn't a player I was like going out and saying, you need to aggressively put him in your lineup. And he didn't do much, right? 3 for 25. He played almost all the snaps, which is encouraging. So he can be a flex play for us, but I'm also not super enthused, going into week number 3. Marvin Mims had a massive game, 2 for 113 and a touchdown, even though Mims didn't play very many snaps, right? And that's why he's not going to be on my waiver wire list quite yet. We want to see some more snaps from Marvin Mims. At least Jaden Reed is getting like 18, 16, 20 snaps. Unfortunately, Marvin Mims, only 7 pass snaps in this game, ran 6 routes. So I don't think that the role is there for Marvin Mims to take over anything yet. We've certainly seen the upside from Marvin Mims, but Jerry Jeudy, I think, can have a better game. So like better than 3 for 25. Maybe it goes like 4 or 5 for 60. That would be nice. But I mean, we got to see how Jerry Jeudy responds this week if he shows up as questionable on the injury report, because it was a late call of whether he was good to go. But nevertheless. Okay. Also, the Zay Jones flop. So the Nico Collins hate maybe has gone a little bit too far for me. But the Zay Jones flop, the 0 is deceiving. Because if you watch the game, it was a matter of about 3 inches combined. And Zay Jones would have had 2 touchdown catches. Like, he missed it by this much twice. So I'm not too worried about the Zay Jones process. But the Nico Collins hate maybe has gone too far. So maybe I'm needing to come around a little bit more on Nico Collins. My hatred for Michigan players has gone too far. It's okay. My bias is there. Okay. There we go. I traded Nick Chubb for Debo. Let's go. Fleecing him. Oh boy. Is Joshua Kelly still okay? I mean, if you don't have anyone better without a pulse, Zach Moss over Joshua Kelly, I think, is the move. Even though, I don't know. It's still tough. Zach Moss is facing the Baltimore Ravens. It's not good. I don't think either of them are really good. That's not a take that I want to be held, nailed to or hell bent to. But that's how gross it is. Zach Moss or Joshua Kelly, right? They're just guys who could have decent running back 2 games. There's just not a high level of confidence. Okay. How much fab for Jerome Ford? 85 out of 100? Yeah, give your 85 out of 100. Like, maybe there are other handcuff backs later on that are valuable. But we've already seen some handcuff situations emerge. Kyron Williams, right? Ask how, ask now. Ask Kyron Williams. Like the J.K. Dobbins, Justice Hill, and Gus Edwards split. That's a pretty even split. We'll talk about Justice Hill in like a little bit. But you're putting chips in on Jerome Ford here. Like, there's not going to be very much left, okay? Okay. Whew. Great. Wow, we are crushing. We are absolutely crushing in the chat. I'm going to take a short break and remind everyone, if you're new to the channel and you haven't hit the subscribe button, just smash it. Just smash that subscribe button, okay? Appreciate all y'all jumping in. We've had a lot of fun. I've already mentioned a little bit about Hunter Henry. You need to be not only picking up, but considering starting Hunter Henry. Henry is number 2 among all tight ends in receiving yards so far. He's playing a career high snaps out of the slot. And that's what we want. We want a tight end who's doing that. That's what leads to high upside tight end outcomes. Could he bust week to week? Yes, just like every other tight end. But playing out of the slot or playing out wide allows for more tight end fantasy point, at least a higher ceiling. And so Hunter Henry is the tight end 2 right now in fantasy points. Yeah, we want Hunter Henry off our waivers. And unless you have like TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, those types of tight ends, you're starting Hunter Henry over Freiermuth. You're starting Hunter Henry over David Njoku, right? Hunter Henry over Kyle Pitts pretty easily right now. So yes, you want to be playing Hunter Henry in most scenarios. All right, another player that you need to be picking up is Tyjae Spears. Tyjae Spears has been absolutely crushing in the rushing game in his minimal usage. You need to be picking him up because Tyjae Spears is tied for 3rd, or actually even better. That's just week 2. Tyjae Spears is the number 1 running back among all running backs in PFF rush grade. Number 1. He's ahead of Bijan Robinson, ahead of Chuba Hubbard, Nick Chubb, ahead of DeAndre Swift, ahead of Kyron Williams or Christian McCaffrey or Breece Hall or Austin Eckler. Name the running back. There is no running back with a higher PFF rush grade than Tyjae Spears. He's averaging 6.9 yards per carry. He's 5 missed tackles forced on 11 attempts. He's making guys miss. 3 of his 11 rushes have gone for more than 10 yards. This is a huge, huge deal because not only is he being used in the rushing game, he's got 11 carries over the last 2 games, but he's 3 receptions, 6 targets. We talk about valuable handcuffs. If Derrick Henry goes down, Tyjae Spears automatically jumps into better than Jerome Ford territory. Tyjae Spears has the draft capital, previous production. He's got the production profile. He's got the measurables. The only thing he doesn't have is ACLs, evidently. Like he doesn't have anything in his knees. So might as well just ride him until kingdom come. That's the deal with Tyjae Spears. Oh, and his pass blocking grade 86.5. That is 3rd best, only behind James Conner and Ramondre Stevenson. So Tyjae Spears has earned a role, and we really haven't seen any running back earn a significant role behind Derrick Henry. Tyjae Spears has earned his way into some playing time, not to overtake Henry, but Henry we know is a 30-year-old running back with 5 screws in his foot. So Tyjae Spears is the pickup right now. He's shown us in small bursts his production at the NFL level. The coaching staff is trusting him. And he's been absolutely crushing in his small sample size, right? Just last week, 8 rushes, 49 yards, averaged over 6 yards per carry. In week 1, right, he had a 17-yard rush, 2 missed tackles forced on 3 attempts. What? This guy makes people miss. So go and get Tyjae Spears. He's available in 85% of leagues. Pick him up. It is worth it. Do it. Do it. Pick up Tyjae Spears. Okay. There we go. Great. Let's keep hitting this. Let's keep hitting the chat. I guess the question with Waller versus Henry, who do you think is going to be able to throw the ball better this week? Daniel Jones against San Francisco or Mac Jones against the New York Jets? I think we're going to go Daniel Jones with the lean there. Nervous about the Giants' offensive line against San Francisco. I get it. So there you go. Yeah. Give me Darren Waller slightly. Yeah. And I guess you could say about the Pats O-line against Williams and New York Jets for sure. For sure. Is Tank Dell worth the waiver pickup? Yup. I think so. Yeah. I think he might also be overlooked by a lot of your casual friends. GQ. So I mean, that's the risk you want to play. Sometimes those players just sneak through, which is awesome. I've been in those home leagues where, wow, I've been surprised that some people are picking up real deep options, but other times they miss the obvious ones. And Tank Dell is a player that might sneak through, but he might not. So it depends on your level of confidence and your experience with your casual league mates here. Henry or Waller starting this week. I think we're going to go with Darren Waller. Okay. I picked up Hunter Henry last week in the waiver, and now I'm trading away for Jonathan Taylor. Nice. There we go. It's Steph Honey. Solid. Yes, there we go. I wonder what to do with Dameon Pierce. Currently thinking of dropping him for Jerome Ford. I think that's fair. Even if Kareem Hunt comes back, I think Jerome Ford is the guy. And it's going to be hard for other people to tell us differently because Kareem Hunt was terrible last year. No team picked him up in the offseason. No team even brought him in to, do anything other than work out with the Saints and work out with the Colts. Oh, he's done some workouts. No team signed him to a practice squad. Is he in football shape? We don't know. So pick up Jerome Ford. Just pick up Jerome Ford, and you'll probably start him over Dameon Pierce. Yeah, Zay Jones got hurt too. I agree. Yeah, dropped him, then ended up picking him back up. Nico balled out. Nico balled out for sure. Smokehat, solid. Cam 2, start him, sit him. Joshua Kelly, Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, Roshan, and Kyron. I think we're going Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams. Those are my two leans for this week. There's not really a reason to move Roshan up into the starting area. It's clear that Khalil Herbert is still getting the majority of touches. Gus Edwards is splitting 50-50 with Justice Hill. Could touchdown variance fall one of these guys' way, like Joshua Kelly? Sure, that's fine. But I think if we're basing all of these on median and even leaning to upside projections, we've seen what Kyron Williams can handle. And we've seen Josh Jacobs have massive ceilings and even in bad games get you 10 points. So give me Josh Jacobs and Kyron Williams right now. Cool. Smokehat. We've got this whole long team. Wondering with Amon Ayuk, questionable. Who should I go with? Yeah, I think you're gonna, if it's start two wide receivers, you're going with Amon-Ra and Ayuk. But if one of those guys starts to be out, Hopkins is gonna have to be the guy for you. I assume that's James Cook. If it's Dalvin Cook, then I think we want to move Dalvin Cook out of our starting lineup. Dalvin Cook has not shown anything, right? I mean, let's look at what he's done for the Jets. It's been nothing spectacular. 17 carries, 40 yards, a fumble, a 51 PFF rush grade, less than 2 yards after contact per attempt. 61 receiving grade is not much. 4 catches for 31 yards doesn't do much, right? So Dalvin Cook is not the answer for the Jets running back or for your fantasy team, frankly. So that's not too good. Yeah, I mean, if you want to start Henry, I don't blame you, but I probably lean Waller still. PPR, who should I start at flex? Rashad White or Pickens over Olave at wide receiver 2 and leave White in? No, you're starting Pickens over Rashad White. We're starting Pickens over Rashad White. Rashad White faced the Bears, which is why he looked good. Anyone looks good against the Bears. I mean, Jordan Love looked good against the Bears. Romeo Doubs looked good against the Bears. So yeah, you're starting Pickens. Pickens is a beast. He's a baller. He got 10 targets in this game against the Cleveland Browns. Targets are earned, and Pickens is a dog. I mean, did you see how wide open he got on that busted coverage play for 70 yards? Yeah, Pickens is a dog. Rashad White, not a dog. He just beats up the Bears like anyone else. I mean, Baker Mayfield beat up the Bears, right? I mean, come on. Mike Evans went for a career day. So no, we're not starting Pickens over Olave, but we are having our lineup set with Olave and Pickens. Olave has been just fine. Okay. What are the 4 top waiver priorities? I mean, you got to be picking up Jerome Ford number 1. Okay. I think in flex leagues, you need to be considering picking up KJ Osborne. He's available in over 80% of leagues. And Osborne is a wide receiver that is operating still ahead of Jordan Addison, but it's getting closer. And Addison may just overtake him in this week 3 matchup because Osborne has not been like great in the efficiency metrics, but he's earned 12 targets, 1 more target than Jordan Addison through the first 2 weeks. And he has a touchdown. So Osborne, the reason why you're playing or considering picking up Osborne is not because he's necessarily very good, but it's because the Minnesota Vikings are passing at an historic rate. The Vikings are throwing on 78% of their plays, which is another reason why we're fading Alexander Mattison. If they're only running with Madison half of what the league is on average, right? The league is usually passing the ball at like 55 to 65% of the time, right? Somewhere in that range is usually the happy medium. But the Vikings are throwing 78% of the time, which means they're rushing 22% of the time. That's not going to get it done for Alexander Mattison. It is the reason why we need to be throwing KJ Osborne into our deep league flex option, flex possibility, especially because this matchup in week 3 is against the LA Chargers. And the Chargers give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So you're starting Jordan Addison, obviously. You're starting Justin Jefferson. But KJ Osborne is a low-end wide receiver 3 flex consideration in a shootout potential game. So we like KJ Osborne in this matchup, not necessarily, as I said, because he is very good, but because this is a matchup. He's already getting the volume. He's averaged 6 targets per game. So give me some KJ Osborne in your deeper leagues. Consider picking him up. Tank Dell is a priority as well. Available in 95% of leagues. So be picking up Tank Dell. He's going to be trending upward. And then, of course, you want to be picking up Hunter Henry, who's available in more than half of leagues. So Hunter Henry, get him into most of your starting lineups. All right, cool. Mark, Ertz or Knox, a better tight end waiver pickup than my current tight end, Cole Kmet. I think you want to tie yourself to a good offense and the touchdown equity that comes with Dawson Knox. That's why you're going to lean Knox. Because even if Ertz, gets 10 targets or 8 targets, it could be for 40 yards, 30 yards. And Knox has a better chance of getting a touchdown than Ertz does of getting 60 yards in a game. So give me Dawson Knox as a better waiver pickup. Should I trade Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones? You should be trading away Daniel Jones and picking up Kirk Cousins. As I mentioned earlier, Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball at an historic rate. The Vikings, 78% of their plays are passes. That's massive volume. It's elevating all of the parts of their offense. TJ Hawkinson, tight end 1. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1. Jordan Addison is a top 18 wide receiver right now. And even KJ Osborne, right, is a wide receiver, low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4, now week to week with the spike week potential. So give me Kirk Cousins as your volume king here moving forward. Even though Daniel Jones might have an interesting floor and possible ceiling, we don't trust that offensive line for the New York Giants, and we also are concerned about the high upside possibility of the wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt had a nice game, but is not running the routes. It's similar to Marvin Mims, so we're just holding on tight. There we go. So there, yeah. T. Higgins or Puka Nacua. This is a tough one. I don't even know how to answer this one now because Puka has been crushing. How can we move away from Puka Nacua? T. Higgins, though, I think, especially if Joe Burrow is out, and Joe Burrow is very questionable for this week 3 game. The calf injury seems to be re-aggravated from the week 2 matchup. So I think you should plan on starting Puka. Wild that I'm saying this in week 3, but plan on starting Puka over T. Higgins. Oh gosh. I just want to share some trauma. Lost by 27 to the Mahomes, Mostert, Zach Moss, Nico Collins, Hollywood, Kelsey, Lockett, Dallas, D, and Bass. Oh gosh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry, Jonesy. Okay, Kirk Cousins for Daniel Jones, or just keep Cousins? Yeah, keep your Cousins. Keep Cousins. Okay. Ooh. Trade Jacoby Myers for Jerome Ford. Yes, you should. Yes. Add Ford, drop Jacoby, add Collins, drop Zay, bench Kelly, Judy, and Roshan. Sounds like a plan to me, Cam Toe. Okay, let's see. Danny Dimes, you had Danny Dimes, CMC, Rashad, Adams, Olave, Komet, James Cook, Pac D, McManus, and still lost. Oh, that's terrible. There we go. Woo. Sweet. Let's see what else. Yeah, we're just crushing it. So if you guys are new, make sure you're like smashing that subscribe button. If you like the content, let me reset here for the recording team. You know, I've got this team of video editors behind me that just work their tails off, you know, to get all this squared away. So you all see a lot of different videos on my channel. What I do is I video stream it, I download it, and the video team just chops it up and makes it sound a lot better and makes me look smarter. So thanks, shout out to the video team, aka shout out to me because I'm the video team. But so what I do is I chop it up and put it into some usable content. But that's why I do some of these resets, so I can just make it sound, you know, normal. So if you like the content, you find this helpful, make sure you guys are hitting that red subscribe button. Really helps the channel. Let's take a look at a few other questions. Let's see here. Yeah, Mark says, thanks for going more than 60 minutes. Yeah, we're on the 68 minutes answering questions. Like and subscribe, y'all. If you are new, smash the subscribe button. It really does help the channel. So I appreciate y'all's support. I'm trying to answer as many as I can here. I'm also like I've got, you know, real day job here and the family upstairs that's sleeping. So I appreciate all y'all jumping in with me, asking questions, going through the waiver wire with me. It's important for all that. Shaky74 says, thanks. Forgot to ask, who's the priority between Kyron and Ford in PPR? Would you empty the fab for them? Who's the priority? I think Kyron Williams is. The priority because I think I like the Rams offense better, believe it or not, than the Cleveland Browns offense. I think that the Browns will probably get into fewer shootouts than the Rams. So if I'm emptying my cartridge, I think the move is to empty it fully on Kyron Williams, not Jerome Ford. And I could be wrong. Like this is, but I like Kyron Williams more. I liked him as a prospect more. And maybe this is my Notre Dame glasses. Cause for those who don't know, I graduated from Notre Dame. And so the Notre Dame rose colored glasses for Kyron Williams is very much there. Like, I'm not going to lie about my biases or try to hide them from you, but I like Kyron Williams and I like what the Rams have done on offense. They played awesome against the Seahawks. And then they were very competitive for most of the game against the San Francisco 49ers, at least from an offensive perspective. So let's get Kyron Williams in. And like from a philosophical perspective as well, when you are unloading your cartridge of fab, you're not going to split this 50-50 because the probability that someone bids less than 50, like the highest bid is less than 50 for either of them, is very low. And you're more likely to get neither of them if you go 50-50 than you are to just chips in put in all your fab and just let the waiver wire, priority deal with that if someone matches your bid, right? So might as well just put in a fab bid of max for both of them and prioritize Kyron over Ford. So if you miss out, you still get one of those guys most likely. That's how I would try to attack that. Do I drop Aaron Jones? Probably not. Probably not. I would do my best to keep Aaron Jones on your roster. Garrett Wilson, Gabe Davis, a good trade for Ramondre and Christian Watson. I like the Ramondre and Christian Watson side more for the long term, but if you're like an 0-2 team and you need some wins, you need people in your lineup, like Garrett Wilson, Gabe Davis are going to be the lineup people for you. I don't know when Christian Watson's going to be back. Maybe it's this week. Maybe it's longer. We just don't know. At least I think the reassuring thing for me is that we knew on like Thursday or Friday that Christian Watson was going to be out. We knew that because the Packers declared him out. It wasn't until like Sunday night or Saturday night into Sunday morning that we found out that Christian Watson wasn't going to be available. So the timeline by which the Packers are ruling him out was more improved as we went on, as we went week 1 to week 2. So I think that's a reason for optimism. I think longer term, I like the Ramondre Christian Watson side. But if you're 0-2 and you want to get back into it, I think Garrett Wilson, Gabe Davis is the move. I was also very high in Gabe Davis this past week. So that worked out pretty well. Gabe Davis getting the touchdown against the Raiders, a bounce back game after I told y'all to sit Gabe Davis against the Jets. I mean, that was a pretty easy call, but sometimes you want to trust that Gabe Davis is going to do good things, and he's not going to do it against the Jets. So there you go. Wow, y'all are crushing my chat after I thought I would be ending the stream here soon, but let's keep her rolling. Baby Santa, what's up? Are you trading James Cook and Godwin for Ridley? I would not. James Cook is an RB1. Yeah, no. No, I'd still no. Saquon, Pollard, James Conner, Kyron. No, I'd still hold on to James Cook. I mean, I would try not to give up Godwin. I'd go straight up James Cook for Ridley. James Cook is an RB1. Like James Cook is top 12 in rushing yards. He's top 12 in PFF rush grade. He's top 12 in yards after contact per attempt. He's top 12 in all of the metrics that matter for running backs. And he's been getting a 13% target share, which is exactly what you want from a running back. So yes, you want to be keeping around James Cook. And tied to a great offense, yeah, give me that, especially since Saquon's going to be out for you for a little bit. Keep James Cook around. And Godwin is a downgrade from Calvin Ridley, but not as significant as is worth it to trade away James Cook. Brendan says, should I trade away Stephon Diggs for Pollard? Should I trade away Stephon Diggs for Pollard? I have bad running backs because of Chud getting hurt. Diggs, Ayuk, Mike Evans. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm okay with you going after Pollard. Yes. Trade Stephon Diggs for Pollard. I'm okay with that. Or Diggs for Ford and Olave. If you can get Ford and Olave for Diggs, yeah, do that too. That's fine for me. Komet or Ertz. I only have Komet because he's just the 7th favorite target, but Ertz against Dallas scares me. Can I pick neither, please? Oh, Jonesy, that's disgusting. Sorry. Like that's like picking between a rotten apple and a rotten orange. Sorry, Jonesy. Best podcast on YouTube. Appreciate Fractal Rain, the Fractal Rain. Appreciate you. Thank you. If y'all are new and you haven't subscribed yet, smash the subscribe button. Appreciate y'all doing that. Rolling Loud highlights. Lost Dobbins and Deontay week 1. Lost Chubb week 2. Trade CMC and Puka. Ford, Jacobs, B-Rob, and A.J. Brown. Is that Brian Robinson or Bijan Robinson? Because that would shift pretty significant. Lineup is Hurts, Waddle, Lockett, Hawk, Pittman, Moss. Currently 2-0. Had to sacrifice. I get it. I think, if it's Bijan, it's totally worth it. If it's Brian Robinson, I get it. You need some more action. I'm okay with that trade, and you got to continue to win, especially with Dobbins gone for the season, Deontay out for 4 weeks. I get it. Okay. Wow. Whew. Here we go. The business circuit, 8-man full PPR. So this is going to be stacked teams. 0-2. Yikes. Yeah. Wow. Yikes. Najee Harris, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson. Yikes. Yeah. I think you need to upgrade your wide receivers. I'm looking at this. Yeah. You need to upgrade wide receivers. See if you can get Najee plus, McLaurin and Gabe Davis to upgrade, give you a wide receiver 1 or 2. I don't even know who you could get for that, but see if you can do a 3-for-1 and just try to see if any wide receiver 1s are available in your league. Like, AJ Brown, buy low, Devonta Smith, you can go after. Chris Olave is fine. If you can swap someone to get Puka Nacua, right? That I think Puka Nacua is going to continue to get targets. That's great. Okay. So definitely upgrade your wide receiver 1 position. Garrett Wilson is a wide receiver 3. Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 3. McLaurin's a wide receiver 2. So you need a dagger at wide receiver 1. So that's what I would target. Baby Santa waiver priority. We're going to go after Hunter Henry or Ertz. Definitely Hunter Henry. Start 3, Waddle, Nico, Cooper, Flowers, Tutu. We're starting Waddle unless he's going to be out. We're starting Flowers for sure. Cooper, even with the injury, went 7 for 90. He had 90 receiving yards. So we're going Cooper. And I think we're going Nico Collins. I can't believe I'm saying that. Baby Santa, appreciate you, dog. Appreciate you too. Thank you. Garrett Wilson for James Cook. Yeah, go get James Cook. What about James Conner and Godwin for Ridley? James Conner and Godwin for Ridley. Depends on who your other running backs are. Because if you are already set at running back, you'll probably keep James Conner and Godwin around. I think that's fine. Just keep James Conner and Godwin. Defense question of the Bucs. They play Philly. Yikes. I have Hurts and AJ Brown stack. Thoughts on playing a D against 2 of my starters? Yeah, that's a bad idea. Okay. The best in the biz. Thanks, Baby Santa. Appreciate y'all. This has been a great night. We've been crushing it for 78 minutes now. I appreciate all of you. If you haven't subscribed yet, crush the subscribe button. Appreciate all y'all. I'm going to call it for tonight. We have a question. Saquon, Pollard, Kyron, James Cook still LOL. Yeah, I think you're fine. Just keep it. It's not worth it's not worth losing James Conner for. I would try to strike for a higher ranking wide receiver, like a Diggs, if you can. Higher than Ridley, but that's what I would do. All right, everyone, it's a great night to be great. Crush your waivers, put in the fab bids, unload your fab, give it all you got. And until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everyone.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.